This is such a special series for you. And here we are in the final bittersweet last season of this. Were you surprised? Were you ready for it to be the finale?
Well, we were very ready. The show creator, Amy Sherman-Palladino, made it crystal clear to all of us as the show was picked up from pilot to two seasons. So while we hadn't aired yet when we first started shooting, other than pilot, we didn't know what anyone would think of it. We just knew we had two seasons to prove ourselves. But from the very first day, if anyone asked Amy, she would say, "This is a five-season show, if we're allowed. If we should be so lucky to get five seasons, it won't go beyond that." So she sort of hung to that all through the making of the series. And as we won more Emmys, some of us would check in with her. So just 5 years? And she stuck to it. And then it was announced and it was official before we started shooting season five. So we were prepared for this is the final season, and we knew that Amy and Dan saw the trajectory, saw the path, saw the ending coming, what it would be. And then they're so damn genius, and they'd set the bar so high that I guess our expectation was that they would, in fact, quote unquote, stick the landing. And I feel they did.
I was going to say, over the years, though, have you had much of a say in helping to mold Moish, or have you just trusted Amy and Dan?
Well, it all starts on the page in terms of a character creation. And they definitely created the world that I would inhabit. They created the character that I would inhabit. But then, as true collaborators, I never got a performance note. I never got any direction based on my choices as an actor. So they write brilliantly, and I guess you say they cast brilliantly because I've talked to the other castmates, and no one really got any direction beyond pace it up, pace it up. Um, there was a lot of that was great. Let's go again. So maybe they silently judged without saying anything until they got what they wanted. But so when the question comes, how involved were you in the creation of Moish Maisel? I would say 30% because the writing is 70%. And I'm going to take a little bit of credit for delivering or executing the terrible choice of words. Yeah, and I loved the the freedom and support to bring Moish to life, which was really memorize their brilliant words and say them in the order they gave you, and don't bump into the furniture. Yeah.
Well, you've had some great scene partners over the years. And I think I love the most when Moish goes tete-a-tete with Abe. Maybe I love it more when he goes tete-a-tete with his wife. It's really hard for me to pick a scene partner for you. Do you have a favorite moment you've had from filming? Maybe a monologue that really still lingers with you?
Well, yes, I have been blessed to work with all these people, and scenes between myself and Michael Zegan, scene between myself and Tony Shalhoub, and yes, Rachel Brosnahan and I got a few scenes together over the 5 years seasons, and they were all just so precious. I do love the big family scenes. In terms of my own personal selfish faves, it actually goes back to my very first episode, which is season one, episode two, where I have the 13 Jews over the holiday meal. Yeah. So I think that episode work for me was it was just an enlightenment because it was so brilliantly written, but it was also something I hadn't really done to be that dramatic in a comedy and commit to it like a piece of theater. Um, was just very, very new, incredibly challenging, and even more rewarding. So selfishly, that might have been. I mean, I've had some favorites. I could list them, but I had to pick one. Maybe that's it.
Well, I was surprised that Moish didn't have like a coronary when they're in the synagogue and they come arrest Joel. Uh, that was a pretty epic scene. I mean, I'm worried. Well, I'm not worried. I'm wondering if Moish really has some lingering feelings of resentment towards Midge, or does he just love her because his son loves her and they're family at this point?
I think in a way he's proud of us for making what he believed was the right to being taken away because it was his son's doing. No one told him or forced Joel Maisel to make that decision. That was him being a man. In those days, that was the verbiage that was used. Hope I'm not canceled for saying it, but um, yeah, that was him standing up to the call of life's journey, right? His version of it. So I think ultimately Moish respects that. It pains him greatly that his son is going away, of course. But I think Moish and Shirley were visiting as often as they were legally allowed to.
I'm not even going to ask what was in Shirley's purse when she was visiting because we all know she brought sandwiches to the Gordon Ford show and stuff. So I can only imagine she had like a bobtar or something she's smuggling in her purse, and
Yeah,
something just to make Joel's fed the right way. Joel's making friends. Who
those
knows?
would be those would be some of my favorite scenes. I'm still predicting there'll be a movie in 4.3 years from now. And so what we're able to do in that film, I do love Amy and Dan's idea in season 5 to flash forward because so many of these epic series over the many decades do leave us wondering whatever happened to those people, right? So because we flashed so far forward, we have this middle area. And in that middle area would be 17 visits that we could show in a montage of Moish and Shirley going to visit their son Joel in prison. And every time, without fail, they pull something out of her purse and stop her from bringing it in. She tries every time.
I'm sure she's like, but I brought you food. Like she brings the guards food, and I feel like she's
Yeah,
like, you have to keep you guys fed too. And they're like, I feel like maybe they see past what she brings in because they're like, okay, today's today. Shirley's bringing us food, but I don't know. Those sandwiches were in her purse for a while at Gordon's show.
I love I love where your head's at, and I'm gonna vote yes. I'm gonna vote yes. Shirley Maisel figures out a way to work the system to her and her son's advantage. Yeah.
Well, this was quite a season of arc for you and Shirley as well, for Moish and Shirley as well. You started out refusing to retire, and it
Yeah.
caused a riff in your relationship. But then I love the full circle moment. The coat, of course, brings you back together.
Yeah.
You're lying flat on for hours, supposedly, until you're able to get some help in the shower. Talk about the trajectory of Shirley and Moisha's relationship. Were you surprised that they maybe had a rift because he wasn't ready to retire, or were you surprised that they got back together maybe because in the middle of the season they do sort of reconcile, but then I think it comes fully, the love really returns there in the shower on the back of your guys' back.
Yeah. Amy and Dan are brilliant at raising the stakes at all times and surprising everyone at every turn while constantly pushing the story forward and the universe wider. So when we did, Caroline, Aaron, and I both read the script that we announced the divorce. We were not knowing where it was going. We were wrecked, both of us, quietly to each other. We were very concerned um, that these two characters who had loved each other madly and sometimes to the horrify uh, of others around them because they're so infatuated with each other. Um, that PDA complaint could be just never ending. So to suddenly it's over, we're getting a divorce, and also the casual nature with which they're sharing this information. So then when we get to the point where they're explaining why, then it was a bing, got it. Makes total sense. His fear of death means I didn't work enough, I didn't accomplish enough, I better get back to work. And her fear of his death means get off your feet. We're going to Boca. And I do see as a threat, she would lay down the law. If that's what you're doing, then I'm out. I'm out because it's insanity. She doesn't want him to kill himself with work. So in trying to heal their relationship, I believe, and I think it's there. She puts her foot down basically, and that leads to a very loud announcement. And any announcement that's that loud, uh, maybe we see it coming. That it's a bark, and will there be a following bite?
Well, it's wonderful that he ends up. I think it's wonderful. He comes full circle, and he does end up retiring. And I do appreciate that Joel's not mad about it because he's always wanted to do his own thing. He ran the business a little bit while you were out of commission, but it's nice to see that father was okay with Joel not taking over, and Joel was okay with Moish selling the business. So I think it was a beautiful full circle moment for them as well.
Yeah, that was one of my other favorite scenes was between Moish and Joel when he hands him the check and says, "Get out, you're fired. Start a new life and a new career." And then follows through by finding really the location of the button club. His former button man has the space. There was some follow through from Moish to help his son. So I did like that a lot. And yeah, his son would prefer him to retire. Yeah. So in the end, they're off to Boca.
Hopefully, Abe and his wife are a little bit distancing themselves. I feel like you guys got a little too close. Life in New York, you guys had the holidays together, but you also, you guys saw each other a lot. So maybe this is their time for Shirley and Moish to do their own thing, make different friends, live their life separately.
Yeah, as the seasons progressed, I love the conflict between the Weissmans and the Maisels, the parents and the in-laws. But as an actor who wants to continue doing the greatest job he's ever had and riddled with insecurities therein, um, it seemed obvious to me that the stories could have moved on. They could have said enough of these people. Why do we need them? We would be seen every rare now and again in Joel's life, but the Weissmans don't need. And so I do love, and maybe it wasn't more in keeping with the time, 58, 59, 60, 61, that you don't get rid of in-laws that quickly and easily, or really extended family. When the choice was made that Joel and Midge would never be out of each other's lives, and they would also never stop loving each other, it did make sense. So yeah, I was over the moon when they decided to continue the animosity between the Weissmans and the Maisels, and then especially when the Weissmans move in with the Maisels. Oh, that was pure heaven.
Well, I feel that this is a great time to ask you that there's in the Jewish tradition, there's a word called bashert, where it means meant to be. I kind of feel like maybe Moish and Shirley are that way. And of course, I wonder, do you think Joel and Midge are bashert?
Well, as I said, by design, they will always love each other. They will always be in each other's lives. And they did rekindle and reconnoiter and reconnect a few times. So um, as we flash forward and we see Midge uh, alone, if the question is, do they eventually get back together physically once Joel's out of the joint? Sure, yeah, let's do that. Let's go with that. But with or without that, I know she visited him even more often than we saw um, as the years, over the years. So yeah, these it was I think explained from the beginning from Amy and Dan that they were sort of Lucy and Desi in the sense of even after the breakup, the love never diminished and they were always a part of each other's lives. Even if you want to say under the guise of they share children, it was much more than that. They never ever stopped loving each other.
You do see the pride on his face when she's, doing her thing on Gordon's show. And we flash forward and see she does have a framed photo of him on
Yeah,
her desk. So I do kind of feel there's that meant to be still a lingering spark that will always unite the two of them, whether it's romantic, whether it's familial. I think, as you said, they'll never be separated out of their each other's lives, no matter what.
right, right, indeed. Yeah, yeah.
Well, here's a tough question for you. What
Okay.
has being a part of Mrs. Maisel truly meant to you?
Um, it's meant a great many things. After A Few Good Men, I started a stand-up comedian and I did a handful of movies, and then A Few Good Men sort of changed everything where I went from auditioning to getting offers and then did way too many movies in the 90s, one could argue. Um, so to have this sort of uh it all started when I turned 60, this job, really. So it's kind of bizarre to be a part of something this impactful at this stage in my life. I hadn't really done television um, to any success or degree. Um, so, and also the sort of forefront of what what streaming television success could be, 20 Emmys in 3 years and all sorts of other awards. I mean, we were sort of celebrated all over the world and still are. We were just in France and as part of the press stuff for season 5, and yeah. So, uh, and also, and most importantly, just the greatest job in the sense of most challenging and most rewarding. I'd spent a lifetime after A Few Good Men also underplaying things as a means of never getting caught acting. I was always the less is more guy. Sort of prided myself on it. Um, And then here I am asked to bloviate, as Abe Weiss referred to it. Be a loud, obnoxious Jew is how I referred to it. And it's the best reviews of my life. So clearly it was a squandered career. I should have been yelling and screaming 35 years ago. So yeah, all of that. And really just to be a part of something so universally loved all over the world, all ages. I mean, it's just so the, just to break through the noise of over 700 scripted shows on, from all the portals and possible channels, to break through the conversation into the so-called zeitgeist, to maintain that over 5 seasons and now more popular than ever, I'm told. Um, yeah, it's all, every aspect of it's remarkable. Uh, so that's all what it means to me to be a part of something that magical, that touched so many people, that continues to. And again, the most challenging and most rewarding for me personally in terms of being an actor.
Were you able to take some mementos with you from your time working on the series?
Oh, I stole some stuff. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Couldn't wait.
Not just the chair back. Is there anything you're able to tease?
I had a few items. Yeah, Donna, the brilliant wardrobe genius who built all of our clothes, did send me a few items, but also I eyed up this silly stack of period ashtrays in the Maisel house when we started shooting, and we had scenes in the living room. Every time though that stack of period ashtrays appeared, and I eyed them up pretty early, thinking, when this is done, I'm taking those. But I did. So many years have gone by, I felt confident asking, "May I?" And they said, "Sure," and I took them legally. Um, and then Cynthia Darlow, who plays Mrs. Moskowitz, was unbelievably thoughtful and generous, and took a couple of plaques from Moisha's office and had them framed and sent them to me. The producers and whatnot gave such great gifts over the years. And the big rap gift was this glorious, and it may not be glorious to anyone else listening to this, but it sure was to me. But a very high end bicycle with Mrs. Maisel stenciled on it, and yeah, just incredible. I live a couple miles from the beach, so it's something I'll actually use. In fact, they gave us two choices, and I said, "Oh, the bike, please." The other one was a private jet, so maybe I was an idiot. No, I don't even remember what the other one was. To be honest
I
with
was
you,
gonna
I
say
used to.
I would have taken Zelda.
Yeah,
That way you would have had
right.
all your needs met.
Yeah. Well, we do have a long time wonderful friend and housekeeper who's been very right by us for many many years. So that was we had our own Zelda.
Only
Um,
fair.
yeah, but I don't even remember what the other choice was other than the bicycle because it was so instant to me. Ooh, the Mrs. Maisel bike. Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of a kind, or at least the handful they gave out. Um, but yeah, just a lot of those incredible gifts over the years and mementos of that kind. And every table read you probably heard was a three-ring circus and quite a production. I mean, actual production designed table reads with pieces of art and photos and created things on the walls. And so at our individual seats, along with the script, usually there'd be a bottle of water, maybe a highlight pen and a pencil. But there were also trinkets and tokens and specialty made cookies with Maisel things, all themed to that episode. And so I've been a long time poker player. If you Google my name and the word poker, you'll see some stories. Oh yes, you will. But one of the when the show went to Vegas, right? When Mitch went there with Shy Baldwin at the table read of that first Vegas script were some chips, poker gambling chips with the Mrs. Maisel logo on it. So naturally, I went around. Do you want your chip? Do you want your chip? So I've got a handful of those. Um, and of course, a lot of these things, these items, including autograph scripts and autograph books, Donna's book, which is beyond description, with all the dresses and all the designs and all the hats and all the stories behind the building of these clothing over the years. I got her to autograph 6 copies because you're one of the very first people to know. Now available, starting the beginning of June, my Mrs. Maisel pod with Kevin Pollak. An episode rewatch breakdown featuring my interviews with cast and crew, all the geniuses in front of and behind the camera.
Wow.
Yes. There are a couple, I noticed, or someone hit me to the fact that there were a couple of fan created podcasts, and I thought, well, that's cool. And I listened to a couple, and that was very wonderful. But why don't we give the fans a real insiders
Absolutely.
insights, personal memories from people who work on the show? First episode, Luke Kirby's my guest. So we're gonna start with a bang.
A banger. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, and we deep dive. I mean, everyone I talk to, again, the casting director, Donna, our Bill Groom, our multi-award winning production designer, along with the cast, of course, but a lot of people who work behind the scenes, directors, and writers, and so other than the usual suspects, I wanted to, and I'm even expanding it to over the years. I've just been text or emailed from very famous people who I've met over the years who were just kind enough to reach out of nowhere and say, the show's amazing and you're great in it. And my wife and I can't stop watching it or whatever, however that goes. So I've reached out to many of them and said, you're going to be on an episode of my new podcast, my Mrs. Maisel pod, however you get your podcast. Uh, and we're gonna talk about your favorite episode. So there'll be a lot of famous people away from the show, um, breaking down an episode too. So excited
Must
about
mean a
that.
lot to you as well.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. And I love rolling up the sleeves and breaking down every episode with people who were there and what it meant to them. Even people who were like guest stars, like the great Nate Cordry, when Midge in season 1 has to start doing what's called party performance. He improvises, her character improvises with Midge, um, to work the actual quote unquote party circuit. And so, he just came in and did an episode. So just, here's a great actor who's having and has had a wonderful career who was just excited to come in and be a part of this thing, right? So yeah, every aspect and every angle. So that's what the show means to me and beyond, an opportunity to share more and more and more and more with the fans all over the world.
And I know coming up this week, you'll be on The Neighborhood. Do you have any other projects outside of the podcast that you've been busy working on as well?
Well, this is I guess this is gonna go out after the yeah. So I did the last
Yes.
two episodes of season 5 of The Neighborhood, just something that came in and don't have any interest. And um the show is delightful and the people were incredibly fun and funny, and the showrunners allowed me to bring in my own special comedic ideas. Um, and they insisted that I come back next season. So we'll see what happens with that if the writer strike ever ends. And then, yeah, I did a couple movies already before the writer strike, and then I'm about to do two more, because these are locked scripts that don't need rewrites, and so that's that deal. Been a proud member of the Writers Guild since 1987, and I stand with my sisters and brothers. But cats need to be fed, and if it's legal and within the union rules, I'm off to work. So that's what's next. And a script I wrote that a lot of people love, a movie script for me to direct, including our own non-writing #1 producer, Dana Gilbert, and also our genius cinematographer, um, who loves it and wants to do it. So we'll see how that comes together. I actually love Lou Kirby for the lead, but I probably shouldn't say that when we hire somebody else. Um, but yeah, so that's a sort of contemporary set, noirish detective femme fatale sort of thing that I'm really excited about, and hopefully can bring it to folks. Um, so yeah, 15 years ago or so, I created a mantra: if you're not creating, you're waiting. And while the phone continues to ring and offers continue to come in, knock wood, I was never one to sit by and wait. So um, it's been a while since I did a podcast. I was sort of at the forefront, one could argue, in 2009 when there were less than 50 on iTunes, and I had to explain to people what a podcast was. But then I ended up doing 10 years and 400 episodes. It's called Kevin Pollak's Chat Show, and still technically on YouTube for the time being. But coming back to it with a very specific vision about doing a podcast being about Maisel. And again, it's called My Mrs. Maisel Pod because it is mine. It's not Amazon's. It's my idea of what to do by inviting the fans all over the world to the inside world. Um, and after my attorneys made it clear I didn't need their approval or involvement, I was off to the races. Yeah. And I'm so excited to share that.